live.
Yay!
Welcome to Women of Deconversion 1 year anniversary. Cheers!
Yay! Cheers!
In my mason jar. I have my mason jar drink.
Stay classy, Shannon. Stay classy.
I'm Nova Scotian. This is classy. I'm not drinking right out of the bottle.
You know, over in London, now it's like really hipster to drink out of mason jars. They come up with drinks just to drink out of mason jars in London. I'm like, in the South where I am, we just use mason jars because we didn't want to throw away our jelly jars afterwards. So then that's just what we put our sweet tea in. It's like we have our jelly. And then you just keep the jelly jars as glasses later. That's what us poor folk in the South do.
I bought it specifically to make mojitos in because I saw like a Pinterest thing that they made mojitos in mason jars and it looked really cool. and now I have a mason jar. So and you can measure. So
that's important. Right? And is that in milliliters? Is that legit in milliliters?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, wow.
I'm very Canadian, so it's a Canadian mason jar.
Yeah. You're so metric.
Yeah, that's right. It's like the rest of the world, except for you guys.
I know. I hate it.
How's everything? How's stuff going?
We all right. I'm doing all right. I've got horrible allergies because the trees and flowers have not learned about consent. And so they're constantly trying to have sex with my nose, and I don't care for that. You're so rude.
Oh my god.
That's funny. It's especially funny for me because I just took my son to the allergy specialist and I found out that he's severely allergic to the sun and dust mites. So he's legitimately allergic to being outside and being inside. There's nowhere safe for him. He needs a bubble. I was like, are you kidding? So he's allergic to existing. Okay, good.
That's
glad to know. Thanks. That's great news.
Oh my god, that sucks.
Oh. I guess we should introduce ourselves. I'm Shannon. Hi, I'm Shannon Q. And get on the line. Why don't you start, Courtney?
So I'm Courtney. I'm in my new apartment. So this is my first time. As I'm sure you guys can see, there's all kinds of like piles of things everywhere. But yeah, so I'm on Atheist Edge YouTube channel. I'm also a very proud member of Women of Deconversion. And then I also am president of a local atheist group in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. So that shows where I live. But yeah, but I'm out with my name and it's okay. So I've got my little non-sweet version of a Manhattan with me. So I'm all good.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Mel, introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm known as Scientist Mel on the interwebs. Usually I talk about science and stuff. That's usually how that goes. I'm new member of Women of Deconversion. This is only my second episode, but I'm happy to be here. I do have a science channel, youtube.com/scientistmel. I also have a website where I have all kinds of things, articles. I have all of my sources there for all of the stuff that I talk about on my channel. There's resources there. You can download and use them if you need them. I do have merch there, and there's a whole entire section where all the proceeds go to different organizations for charities, science research, activism, for people who have poor behavior on social media.
I just
sell T-shirts with the horrible things that they say, and then donate the money to groups they hate, like World Wildlife Foundation, blocked by PETA T-shirts. PETA. All that money goes to the World Wildlife Foundation.
Very nice.
So stuff like that. So I try to give back how I can. So that's nice.
That's cute.
Perfect. So today our topic of conversation is going to.
Perfect. Did you hear my screaming family in the background?
I did.
That's good.
Or is it screams of joy? If that's the case, then that's just fine.
Sure. Yeah, that's what happens in the family. Screams of joy. Mm-hmm.
Jubilation.
Introduce yourself. You're here just in the nick of time. It's your turn.
Oh, it's my turn. What am I saying?
Yeah, just who you are.
Just introducing yourself.
I am.
Yeah.
Nice.
You're self-adjusted.
That was just perfectly timed. It was good.
Okay, good.
Oh, Christine looks confused. Can you hear us?
Where is Rachel?
Oh, is Rachel in here? I haven't seen Rachel yet.
Yeah, we haven't seen her yet.
Yeah.
Oh, she's not here. Oh, okay.
Go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about yourself.
All right,
and-
I will introduce myself. My name is Christine. I am the sort of founder of Women in Deconversion, but this
founder.
you know. But we started with Secular Hangouts, which was a group of like 3 people who, once Godless Journey and Graceful Atheist started just chatting with each other about like what it meant to deconvert and what the process was and, you know, what you had to go through and yada yada. And so they invited us on, Heather and I just happened to be more available than her at the time because she got her dissertation on her way. And so I had a little more time. I don't know why, but so anyway, so we sort of jumped into this and I thought, man, you know, the atheist community is full of men. It feels like it. You know, when I first started, I felt like I was like bombarded by male atheists, and not that it was a bad thing. It was just a lot. And I was like, where are the women? And so I found Mrs. Snarky, who introduced me to Shannon and Mel and, who else? Allie from Atheist Republic. And oh my goodness, we had this big stream. Do you remember, girls? Like way back in the day, it was on the Scarecrow's show, right?
Oh, Maddie. What used to be the Godless Island, yeah.
Yeah, Maddie, Godless Island, yeah. So we all came together on that show, and we sort of like, you know, people who were interested joined the show, and it was really cool. And we just started talking about problems, and I'm rambling. But so anyway, that's how the show started, and here we are 1 year later, our 1 year anniversary, which is so stellar. And
we did it.
I'm really excited. It's very cool. It's neat that we have had 12 awesome conversations about being a woman after deconversion, and I started thinking about how we can start branching out to people, to other people of deconversion, and people who are non-binary, and different groups, parents and other groups, just to see like what other perspectives there are, because you know, leaving a religion is really jarring. And I think we all deal with it differently. And I think having those conversations out in the open really helps the community grow and unite, kind of. So that's what we're here for. We're uniting the community. Time of maybe turmoil.
Yeah. When is it not? When is it ever not?
Exactly. So today we're talking about a different kind of uniting. Alternative relationships, such as long distance relationships, open relationships, asexual relationships. What other types of relationships are there that you can think of, ladies?
Polyamorous.
Let me say polyamorous.
Yeah.
Non-married relationships, which even that would have been just a big deal to
Yeah.
a lot of us. We're really, really religious.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I sort of wanted to start by asking you ladies what, maybe not the most open or most foreign relationship you'd been in since you deconverted, but maybe the want for one. If you haven't actually been in one, where is the want for one? And if you have been in one, I'd love for us to share that too. So it'd be cool. So why don't we start with Courtney?
So like, meaning the most like relationship that's different from traditional, or like what I've done before?
Yeah, like what your expectations were when you were Christian, and then like how, like what sort of do you aim for now, or what's the like farthest you've gone away from that original traditional view, if you have at all?
Right. Can you guys hear me if I don't like hold this thing up?
Yeah, you're fine.
You good? Okay. So, yeah, I talked about this when I recently did a little segment on Christine's podcast. I'm sure that's not published yet, though. It's a little early. But so I did have a very traditional idea of relationships and of like sex inside of marriage kind of thing. I was definitely practicing abstinence, but as one says, it wasn't completely like on offer anyway, so it's fine. But there was a comedian that talked about that recently. She's like, nobody was trying to get in here. Anyway. But so yeah, I once I deconverted, I had to like invent my own idea of what I thought was okay for relationships and for sexuality and things, and yeah, I haven't really ventured too far out of like monogamy. We always get so personal on this channel.
Yeah, we do.
And we always like spotlight Courtney first, you know?
Do we?
We really do. We do.
I haven't noticed. Yeah.
This
But
almost feels like a Lucifer episode. Tell me what you really desire.
Well,
Kind of, yeah. No, that's kind
yeah.
of what it is.
No, I have seen like, I guess this could count as relationships. Those kind of like not platonic but casual, like friends with benefits kind of things. And yeah, I was good with that for a very long time. And yeah, I think that it taught me a lot about communicating in relationships and honesty and making sure that everybody's on the same page about what everything means and what it doesn't mean, and you know, whether you're exclusive or not. So I have done that thing where like you're not in a relationship but you're exclusively physically together. It's odd. I don't know. I think it was like lacking the emotional component but having the like safety of commitment in terms of like a physical friendship.
Kind of like a closed type of relationship, but not really closed until you had a connection with like a romantic nature of it.
Right. Yeah,
So
I think it was like
So no one said you were not sleeping with other people, but you were not sleeping with other people.
No, we did. We did say that. So it was the kind of thing where like we're not in a relationship. We don't want to be like emotionally involved. This was a long time ago. But so we're not in a relationship. We're not emotionally involved, but we are friends with benefits. But we don't want to be worried about like the risk of multiple partners within this friendship. So for that time being, we like agreed to be exclusively with each other, but not in a romantic way. It was interesting. It was its own kind of version of it. So that's probably one of the stranger things that I've done. But I don't know. That was when I was more anti-relationship. I didn't really want to be in a relationship, but I did have people that I was interested in other ways, and so I just sort of created my own version of that, and that worked for me as long as everybody was on the same page and everybody was honest and respecting each other, and I never had an issue with that. But in recent years, I'm moving a lot more toward a serious relationship, something that, you know, has a more long-term effect, which is what I'm, you know, just on the lookout for. I'm online dating, and it's fun.
Very cool.
Not really.
Look her up at. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I said look her up at.
Oh God.
And
You know what's funny?
DMs, man.
As a side note, I do have some of my like information about my channel and stuff on there, and so it ends up having like my name and things kind of out there a little bit more. But it is interesting because people even online will contact me for the first time, and sometimes they like have already seen some of my stuff and like they already feel like they know me a little bit.
That's
And
weird.
I'm like, I don't know you at all. But
that's cool.
Awkward.
yeah.
I live in somewhere very remote. I think I've said New Hampshire, so I don't bump into anyone that's like people. Maybe a deer. Maybe a deer comes up to a moose is like, "Hey, love your show."
Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mel, your turn.
Boy. Okay.
I can't wait for that. I'm all jacked up.
So, let's see. I was, brought up like Nazarene, and they were taught to be very monogamous. Women couldn't have short hair. When we went to Jesus camp, our shorts had to come down to our knees. Girls had to swim in the pool at different times from boys. If you were caught with a boy after hours, you were sent home by cab, and your parents had to pay or something. It was crazy. So I was brought up with this heavy sense of monogamy, and with my ex-husband, his step uncle was a Baptist minister. And even though we had premarital relations, we weren't like actively talking about it around people, but his parents were like, well, let's get you guys set up in this house, and we're going to rent this house for you, and we'll set up and we'll put down the deposit, but she can live there by herself. You can't live with her yet until after you get married. Well, we weren't even married 2 years. So we're just like, no, man, this is terrible. That was a terrible marriage. It was horrible. But so prior to me leaving religion, I had this idea, and I wasn't quite certain of what marriage was supposed to be like. You don't really know until you get into it, and you're like, kind of like I went to nursing school, got all the way into clinicals. I'm like, God, this sucks. Why would anybody want to do this job? The doctors are mean, and then this over here, and then this, and then you get like in the throes of it, and you're like, this is horrible. So my first experience with, having an ex-husband and all of that, I'm like, golly. So you get like this idea painted in your mind with this Ward and June Cleaver. And, my husband was supposed to finish his architecture degree, had an internship at this premier architecture firm. And he whined more than anybody else. Well, I can't pass this class called steel. I'm like, take it somewhere else. No, that's too hard. I'm like, you need 3 classes. Hurry up so I can finish my degree. It was just like constant, So it's like the woman would have to give up everything to support the dude, right? And so I had like this idea that I was supposed to do this, And then after I left religion, I was like, and then I started thinking about what is marriage? What is a relationship? What is all of that? It was like, and then I'm sitting here going, and then I went to university, and then I started learning about all of these other cultures and all kinds of different setups, and how a lot of the society and a lot of their marriage type of things are all based around resources. There is some communities up in the mountains, I forget which country it is, to where 2 brothers will have a single wife because they share resources. The parents don't want to divide up the land, because then if they divide up the land, then they're going to have babies on their own with 2 different wives. Then that's less land for the children to have, and so on and so forth. And so they actually have 2 brothers will have the same wife, and then they all have babies together. And so I started to get really interested. I'm like, okay, so there's all these different cultures.
I got to find me some twins is what she was thinking.
Oh, wow.
You know me.
It wouldn't be bad, if I had like 4 husbands, like, you are in charge of yard work. You gonna do my laundry?
Oh
I'll
my
go make
God.
some money. It's all right, baby. You stay here. You don't be in charge. But it's interesting when you go and you look.
Christine's like, yes.
Right? You can work on the housework. You'll be like doing the repairs. I think I need some new tile in the bathroom. But I would probably be exhausted with that many husbands every night if I were to take into consideration their individual needs. So
Yeah.
like,
I want so
Mama
many
need-
husbands.
Mama needs a break. I need a vacation.
Oh my
like-
gosh.
I'd like 2 wives and several husbands.
Oh my
Seriously, I'm not. I wish I was joking. I wish I was joking.
Oh my
You know,
God, we love you so much, Christine.
Wait till you hear my turn.
You say what we are all feeling.
So once I started to learn about all of these different things, I'm like, well, what is marriage? What is a relationship type of thing? And I came to the personal conclusion that it is whatever you and whoever you're with dictate it to be. So you get to dictate the terms of your relationship. So
Or you should, definitely.
yes.
You should be able to.
Yes. So, and sometimes that makes it particularly difficult when you're trying to find somebody who thinks of that mentality, where they're not of this traditional idea of like, well,
Yes.
you're the wife, I'm the man, you should stay home. And I'm like, honey, I got 4 degrees. Maybe I should go work. Maybe
Right.
you should stay home.
Well, and it's not. It's also, and Mal, I totally relate to that because I don't think I'm a crazy hippie. So I like free love, but the people I would meet who were interested in the same sort of things I were. Someone help me put this well.
They okay.
They were just a little bit outside of my value circle.
They were outside of what your parameters were of what you would find appealing for yourself in your relationship.
Yes, they were outside the model of
your preferences.
Yes. And so it was just difficult because people who broadcast that information are looking for something entirely different. They're looking for someone who, is interested in, it's often like a man and a woman who are interested in another woman.
Yes.
I got a lot of that when I was dating online. And then
I believe they call those women the unicorns.
Yeah.
I think that's what they call them because they're so hard to find.
Yeah.
That's a polyamorous relationship term.
Ah.
Sir has taught me that because he's in a polyamorous relationship.
Ah.
He taught me that term. I've been learning a lot from Cyrus regarding polyamorous relationships.
Yeah, no, I love polyamory, but I just couldn't find the right group. It was really tough in my area to because one, you have to like when you're open about that initially, then you like seem like you're extreme or promiscuous or whatever, and that like paints a different picture. And then they think, oh, like how can I take advantage of this, and something. And then it was like to the other side, and it was very hard to navigate that world. So I feel you, Mel, like finding those people who match well with your values is just tough, I think.
Yeah. And it's funny, I do have friends of mine who practice alternative lifestyles. And one thing that this woman was going through in her relationship, when she would go out and she would try to find somebody to, take on as a partner, a lot of the men thought, oh, you're open or you're poly, that means you have no preferences whatsoever and I got a shot. And so it was just like she ended up in all kinds of just horrible situations where I would have to go and help her, and I'm just like, wow. But it's just the stigma that comes with women in that case versus a guy. A guy is not likely to get in a rapey situation with a girl. But a girl in this case is kind of, it gets the stigma there is she's easy. I have a shot. and you know, I should be able to do what I want with her, and she's, you know,
Whoa.
so it's a perspective that you know, it's kind of scary for some women in that case. But
Yeah.
guys, they would be like, and there are certain women who, you know, it's not going to be a big issue for a dude like it is for a woman. But at the same time, it might be harder for a guy to find a
I
woman.
was thinking, I don't know. I'm
So
not sure if polyamorous guys have it easy either. I think that
yeah,
just that openness, just that, and I'm not saying that people in monogamous relationships are closed. I think that you can be very open, but still, what am I talking about? I'm in a monogamous relationship, but I'm a polyamorous person. So, but what I'm saying is that, like, I think that anyone who allows himself to say, hey, I get that we're two different people and I'm willing to meet you in the middle, is opens themselves up for some hurt that doesn't necessarily come with, hey, this is how I am, this is how I want you to be, these are my terms.
right.
And so I don't know, I would love this is like one time when I'm like, oh, we should have a guy on. That. But yeah, so anyway, Shannon, I'd love to hear your most alternative relationship.
Oh yeah, geez, I almost got out of that. Didn't I?
I saw
yeah,
you like shrinking.
The truth or drink thing.
Yeah, oh God. Yeah, I always lose that game or win. Depends on your perspective.
Indeed.
So I was always sort of geared, similar to, you know, Mel and probably everybody else here, towards monogamy, and that your ultimate goal is to achieve a marriage. You want to achieve a marriage. So it was ingrained in me that that was a goal that not only I should want and ascribe to, but that's a benchmark for life satisfaction. And as such, I made it, I drove towards it with the idea in my head that that was a goal that I should be achieving. However, looking back in hindsight, I did get married, and it wasn't what I anticipated it being. And it wasn't satisfying because I got married because it's what you were supposed to do, not because it was necessarily what I wanted. It just seemed like the next logical step instead of something that I really, truly felt a desire to do. It's just, it was more of a, I hate to use the word obligation, but expectation that I had set for myself, because it was ingrained in me. And it ended up being detrimental because since that was instilled in me as the ultimate goal, I didn't carefully assess what my actual desires were when it came to partners or a partner or partners, and what those relationships would look like. I didn't give myself the opportunity to explore, because each relationship that I entered into it thinking, will it end in that goal? As opposed to, wanting to see what developed to find out what my goal should have been, if that makes sense. And it turns out that I'm actually what you would call a sapiosexual. I'm somebody who is attracted to intellectual conversations, like somebody who challenges me intellectually, as opposed to, multiple other metrics for relationship success. So, and as much as I like and love sex, sex isn't as high on the spectrum of things that are important to me in a relationship, in a monogamous relationship, which is also something that I want because I enjoy that emotional connection. So ultimately for me, it actually ended up being a long distance relationship that satiated what I really needed in my life, but I didn't find that out until much later. So currently I'm in a really satisfying long distance relationship with somebody who hits all of those marks for me. And it took me forever to find that, because I had been so socialized and educated and to believe that I'm a girl, Your goal as a girl is to get married and have kids. That's what you do. That's the trajectory that you follow. Do that.
And if you don't, you're a failure.
Right, exactly. Why doesn't anybody want you? Why are you prioritizing the wrong things? You're going to so regret having kids. And I had kids later in life. I have a kid and I don't regret a goddamn thing about it.
Don't be smarter than your husband. Don't be smarter than your husband.
Yeah, it doesn't go well. You get
I never heard that.
Oh my
Don't
God.
be smart.
I think they probably were like, "Oh man," but I'm not.
Yeah.
Depends on the husband, I think,
What I was
too,
going to
right?
say
Don't
offline.
make him feel bad. Watch out for his ego. Let him drive the car. You know?
No, that depends on the guy too, I think. I don't want to be unfair to men.
Oh my God. I heard all that crap. I'm like, no.
Yeah. Like there's many men who adore a woman whose, intellect in certain aspects of life is a challenge to them and something that they can learn from. There are men who would be threatened by it, and perhaps more than not. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look at research on it, but I don't think that it's by any way all of them, but those that are, I think a lot of that has to do with the same sort of socialization that they get, where that they're supposed to be dominant, whereas we're supposed to be submissive, and they're supposed to be smarter and take care of us, and we're supposed to be taking care of kids. Like, they're just as victimized by the narratives of the lives that we're supposed to live as we are.
Yeah.
When
I was. Oh, sorry, Shan.
No,
when I was young, I was convinced by one of my teachers that you shouldn't vote differently than your husband.
Ooh.
Wow.
Sort of like a 2/3 like situation. Like you should just vote with your husband because you're not as much of a person.
You're not as important as
Yeah.
Or just that you shouldn't disagree with them like outside of the home. Like
don't
outside your home. Like it's okay.
Don't make him angry. You wouldn't like him angry.
It wasn't really. I don't know. It wasn't really angry.
I know.
I mean, I'd kill for some Bruce Banner, but that's not the right word.
Yeah. It's so bad, no.
He's green. It's cool.
Yeah. When he's Dr. Hulk, he is. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was. I really enjoyed that. He decided to just share it. We're just sharing it. All right.
We're fangirling the Hulk right now. We're fangirling the Hulk. Okay.
I got totally lost. I don't know what you're talking about.
Goodness. So I'll tell a little bit of my story because I started. I don't know what happened. We started talking about the Hulk. So actually, I think I started very young being polyamorous because my boyfriend, my first boyfriend, was kind of a weird situation. He was with other women before me, very young age. And so I was like, well, I'm celibate till I'm married. So I will let him do his thing and like be whoever he wants to be, and I'll still love him, but I need to be celibate. So at that time, I was very open to him being with other people. I mean, we're talking like 13, 14. Now, granted, we weren't like a real couple. We were on and off for a really long time. And he was with other girls and, whatever. But the whole time I was just like, no, I'm just here to like love him and not worry about the jealousy part. And I really didn't have a problem with it. And so I think even as a Christian, it's weird because all of my instincts said like, no, I don't know. My instinct said he needs to do him. He needs to be, whatever he and God have going on is fine, and whatever I have going on with God is fine. And it wasn't like I wanted to tattle on him or anything, it was just like, this is how I'm going to love. I'm going to choose to love him. And then when it doesn't work out, it's still really hard for me. Like when I was young, I was like, nope, I'm going to choose to love him forever. And I still like go back in my head sometimes and I'm like, am I supposed to like stick to that?
Did I keep my promise?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
That's so interesting.
That's weird.
No, like
I look back at my 14-year-old self and I'm like, girl.
Yeah.
Again, it's cool. It's cool. You know, I'm really proud of that part of myself, and I'm glad I grew up keeping that. You know, and then I was in a very, very monogamous relationship because my boyfriend really didn't. He really didn't even like when I hung out with other people. It made it just, he was just insecure and not like, I don't know, he had some bad experiences before me, and so that was really tough for me. And I was like, you know, I just want to love people. I just want to like know people in the biblical sense, and not in the biblical sense.
Oh man.
And I was just like so curious.
Life is a buffet, and I want to hit the French buffet, and I want to hit the American buffet, and I want to hit the Chinese buffet. It's Vegas.
Buffet. Exactly. So I say that all of my relationships, except maybe 1.5, were polyamorous. As a matter of fact, at one time or another, one of the men I was with, we agreed to be in an open relationship, and he didn't act on it, and it drove me insane because I felt like I couldn't act on it. And then we talked about it one time. He said, like, you know, I just don't need it. I just don't have the libido. I don't care. And so it was really different to be in a relationship where we were polyamorous. Well, the relationship was polyamorous, but I was the only one who was like interested in hanging out with and being with other people. So it's such a weird navigational path. It's really tough, and you really have to like talk to your partner and figure out what's best. And I consider, like, for me, I like to think of like one person as a primary partner, as like a stable foundation, and then from there you can sort of like, hey, I'd like to be with this person, what do you think? I'd like to go to dinner with this person, you know, what do you think? And for me, I keep like sex and emotions are here for me. They're both very intimate. They're both, you can be so enthralled by someone, as Shannon was saying, who's just can bring intellectual conversations to the table and like love them beyond anything your partner has ever given you. And I don't know how that's not the same. You know, for me, it can sometimes arouse the same feelings, you know, just the excitement and the connection can be so deep and intimate, you know.
Somebody once explained to me, it's kind of like for their particular relationships, they have the person that is their book person. They sit there and they talk all day about their favorite books, and that's the thing that they share. Then you have your geeky movie person, that's the thing that you share. Then you have maybe a sciencey person, and that's the thing that you share. So you connect with them on different levels that you don't necessarily connect on with your primary partner, but they bring out different things in you that you're able to kind of learn more about yourself. That's what I've been told. So
I'd be curious how that dynamic works when you're like meeting somebody that you want to, I don't know what the term is, like the secondary, one of the secondary people.
Yeah.
Like how you introduce that dynamic to them, because I don't know, like when you're dating, a lot of people assume that you're looking at monogamy, and it can almost be jarring or insulting when you're asking them to be like not only part of a polyamorous thing, but a secondary partner in that, if that makes sense.
I think you'd have to be open up front. Well, I would assume you would have to be open.
Well, yeah, but I just mean like I wonder how that conversation might go.
Yeah,
it's just interesting.
Yeah, so I think it depends on the situation, right? So there are, I think it depends, right? Because if it's sexual, then you sort of have a journey that you go through anyway before. I mean, you can be sexual with someone the same night you meet them, and you can wait like 5 or 6 dates, you know, or whatever. So I think, I mean, generally, I think the people that I talked to when I was in a relationship, I was very upfront, like on OkCupid. You know, I was like, hey, I'm in a relationship, but these are the terms, you know. But I don't know. There was one person who I was really interested in as like an intellectual stimulator, because we just thought very similarly. We had a lot of the same values. And I sought him out like 3 years later. And I was like, hey, I'm in a relationship, but I really liked our time together. Would you like to like talk more? And, you know, so again, this is one of those things where it's like, I still had to talk to my partner about that. You know, it was still like, even though there was no sex involved, it was still like, hey, look, this is a piece of us that I'd like to share with someone else because they think differently, and, you know, they bring something out of me that I don't necessarily, you know, get with you. And so, or it's not that I don't get it, it's just not as strong or something like that. And so, but that was kind of weird, you know, because it ended up being like the guy like was way too interested. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. Like, this isn't what I was looking for. I need to back off. And so again, it's something you have to navigate. It's not always cut and dry. But generally you can tell.
Mhm.
You can kind of tell like the first date if they'd be down.
So gangsta.
Thumbs up, thumbs down. Just give me this while we're sitting at the table, man. It's all right. You ain't got to say a word.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But down means yes.
Yeah, down.
Down. Yeah.
And up means I'm out of here. Like down.
It's like what is it? That Greek or Roman, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or does that mean sexy times under the table?
Oh.
Oh wow.
Is it happening without me? It's like,
Oh my goodness.
you just got Mal, you're very good at that.
What?
No, I'm teasing you. You're awesome.
Random stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, so I have a question for Shannon.
Uh-oh. Nope.
And it's okay. Nope. Drink.
It's okay.
I mean, I get like your current relationship if you don't want to share right now, but has there been, I know and I understand that sex isn't as important. Is there
it's still
sort of
important.
okay. No. As I said,
Yes,
did I say?
as the other, as the other components of the relationship.
As
Yeah,
the other-
I'm willing to trade is essentially.
Is like an open relationship something that the two of you would ever consider? And if you haven't talked about it, clearly, like don't worry about it here.
I think that he potentially would, but I don't know if I would.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I would, because it's an intimacy and security thing for me. I think like I want to be able to have all of that component of intimacy with that person kind of belong to me as something special between the two of us. Now, I wouldn't knock it in anybody else or discourage it in anybody else. And I would, if anybody else was, derisive towards somebody who had that proclivity, I would defend them ardently. But it's not something that I want personally. I would feel even myself as though I was betraying that person, I think. No, rightfully or wrongfully, that's a feeling that I would have internally if I went elsewhere, even if he was okay with it. That's a feeling that that would be really, really strong in me, that I would have difficulty reconciling. And I'm not sure that whatever, immediate gratification I gained would be worthwhile.
And so you see, I'm guessing that you view sort of the intellectual stimulation and the sexual stimulation as different things.
Yes, absolutely. I really do. However, I've realized that the two of them are coupled for me in the instantiation of that person. So I am very much innately monogamous
Mhm.
towards people. I mean, I have a sexual history. I've been with more than the two people I've referenced by a little bit.
Do you have a spreadsheet?
It's okay. It's not like a game where we say our numbers.
Oh my
Kidding.
god.
Worry.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Do you have
What?
graphs?
I don't have graphs. No,
It's okay.
no, I
It's
don't have
Oh,
graphs.
Excel sheet.
Detailed in my record keeping.
I remember,
That's
I
ridiculous.
remember the last day I like wrote down I like wrote down a big list of all the people I'd kissed, and I was
Oh,
like,
God.
I got to some point I was like, I just give up.
I couldn't even tell you. I used to go to the bars a lot when I was single. I don't know.
I'm not. I can't think of all the people I've
I
kissed.
couldn't even
If
tell
I
you
just-
the girls
yeah.
I kissed. I don't know.
Yeah.
I legitimately have no idea.
Just
That was funny.
Here I am, like counting now.
I'm don't even ask me to make a list of people I have kissed. I'm just gonna say no.
have no idea.
I'm not gonna.
By the way, it was nice seeing you at Faithless Forum,
I
Shannon.
know. You hugged me so much, and I was
I know.
so confused all the time. I'm really sorry.
I made it sound like we kissed or something, but no.
Yeah. Oh, that reminded me.
Oh my goodness.
Wrong context, but seriously, like, yeah, it was really exciting.
I know.
And I saw.
Jealous because I was
Mhm.
like, oh, that would have been such a good live show. It would have been such a good anniversary show, to do it live. I'm like, I'm such an idiot.
We
but-
could have done it from the hotel.
I know, shut up. I remember
Oh,
Oh gosh.
Next year we can do our second anniversary.
Hotel streaming for the women of deconversion.
Mhm.
oh, that sounds so sexy.
After dark. Just or after dark at the end of that.
Oh
Which
man.
technically it is, but we're just, talking.
There was people streaming from everywhere at the hotel, so we made sure we had a
Yeah.
hotel with good Wi-Fi.
I know.
YouTubers everywhere.
I know.
Sorry?
I saw like how many different people like were talking about
Oh
Faithless
my
Forum
goodness.
at the show, and it was like,
Oh yeah, it was
Mhm.
intense. It was the first time in my life a stranger stopped me, and it happened more than once. But at the hotel, shortly after I got there, and I was disheveled because I was just on like a 12-hour plane extravaganza trying to get to Dallas. And I was like, I had like a bottle of like a cooler or wine or something in my hand because I was like, fuck everything. I'm going somewhere to drink by myself. And I was walking down the hallway, and some guy in the elevator was like, "You're Shannon Q." And I was like,
Aw.
I'm in my yoga pants holding a bottle of booze.
Oh,
No
man.
shame. No shame. I stream in my jammies. You all good.
That's funny.
Makes it real.
Great as hell.
Q is
That was
another
a real
person.
experience.
That's funny.
That's so funny.
Yeah, your channel's like much larger than what I do online, but like which is why I was pretty surprised at like having people talk to me as well.
Well, of course I recognize
It was
you.
interesting. They were just like, "Oh yeah, I recognize you from online," and I'm like, "You do? Like what?"
Wasn't that an
It
awesome
was really
experience?
great. I was just there to like fangirl on Cosmic Skeptic, so it was okay.
Alex is very
Yeah.
quiet. He's very quiet.
Is he like 19?
He's 20, I think.
Okay, because they kept making jokes about him being like under the drinking age, and yeah,
No, he's 20. He's
Oh,
nice
he
though.
said-
He's very fun.
he was like land of the free my ass. That was so funny. It was funny, but yeah, no, I mean, you can't tell how old he is because he looks the same to me as he did when he was like 17.
I didn't
Just
realize
he
he
looks
was
the
like
same.
6'3". Like, he was like super freaking tall. I thought he was gonna be like my height. He's not. He's insanely tall.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Reminiscing about last week.
Last week, like 10 years ago. But
Oh goodness.
no, it's all good. I totally understand. I think it's really cool when our community comes together. I think that it's special and something to be lifted up. Boy, I sound like like a teacher after like a class gets derailed. Like, yes, it's okay to like.
Let's
bond.
get back on schedule, back on target, focused.
Special,
Are
but we
you
just-
off task? Let's get back on task, kids.
Aw.
So then I'll ask Courtney something. So Courtney, do you think
Got my drink
that
ready.
your relationship, this future relationship that you're, thinking about, will be monogamous or polyamorous, or what's your like jam, you think?
I mean, in terms of serious relationships, I've only really ever done monogamy. But when it's been casual friendships, it's pretty much always been not, which it's the nature of being casual. It makes sense. But it's just that I feel like I am very used to that mentality of maintaining heavy communication and, comfort levels and making sure everybody knows what page they're on and everything. And so I don't know. I think, yeah, when I think about like what I'm wanting in terms of like a long-term relationship, it really doesn't include polyamory. But there's so much like hype around it lately about like this is almost like the way to have a successful marriage, you know what I mean? Like there's this idea that like that, divorce is this high and whatever, and like and part of the reason for that might be that people are so used to monogamy and so ingrained in that like they don't see it as a viable option, and it may be something that's actually for them and makes them happier. So yeah.
Oh,
Does that make sense? Like it's used as like a cure to,
Right.
but not like an alternative overall. Like not saying like this is what's going to work for everybody, but
Right.
saying that like this is a viable option that people don't consider usually. And so
Almost like gay people who were marrying because they felt like they had to, rather than explore
Yeah.
their sexuality to a degree.
yeah. So
But that doesn't mean that a homosexual relationship is for everybody either, though. But it's-
Exactly. Exactly.
right,
Yes.
right. So yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to stay very open with myself about what might work and trying to not put myself in a box just because it's traditional. And so I don't know. I'm kind of open to, meeting somebody that's interesting if that's something that they're into, and I can kind of explore it and see how I feel about it. But at this point, I don't really know how I would feel about it. It's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like having children. Like you don't know how you're gonna feel.
You don't.
Yeah.
God damn it, you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
Right.
Yeah, so I think it's funny that you say it's like trendy. I mean, because I think for me it was trending like 5 or 6 years ago.
I mean, I'm usually way behind the times. So that's
Oh,
probably
no,
what I'm talking about. I don't know.
That is not
I don't
at
know.
all what I was saying.
No. I'm just saying the stuff I've seen online. I don't know how old it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
And I mean, this was trending in like more conversational too. It wasn't like I was not a YouTube watcher back in the day, as they're labeled now. But I do think that there is this weird, there's sort of polyamory without the conversation is so unhealthy.
Oh yeah.
And I think that like this saying that it's a cure for marriages is so naive in some ways. And I've seen this like hurt people, right? Like I've seen where it's like, well, if I can just be with this person, or if I can just like explore these hotter, younger people, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, I think cheating is not the same as ethical
Oh, yeah.
non-monogamy.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it is. I'm not
Right.
saying it. Well,
Yeah.
no. Well, I say. So I'm not. We can talk about that offline.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not saying that it is. What I'm saying is like there is sort of this coercion now for people who are monogamous to accept polyamory because it will help their relationship in some way. And I don't think I think that there are good things about opening your mind to those things, and there are bad things about forcing someone to view
Yeah,
that
'cause-
as
Yeah,
a way of life when they really don't when they really don't see, can't understand, can't embed those feelings into themselves. You know what I mean?
That's
Right.
why informed consent is extremely important in those situations.
Right. And I'm glad you clarified that, because that's not what I meant.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Because that's a really good distinction that I've heard a lot in like the polyamorous community of like, the difference between cheating and polyamory is very, very clear to that community, but in the monogamous community, it may not be so clear. And also, adopting it because it's what somebody else wants, and it's not really what you want. And so I think for me, I do have a history of being very comfortable with being casual with people, and polyamory is not casual. It's a very different thing. And so I don't know. I would be open to exploring it, I think, but I, again, like, I don't, obviously I would want to only do that if it was something that was for me and for the partners that I have. And so, I'd have to see. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, in my head, of course, like, there's that, societal idea of like one person and like being married and whatever. Like I haven't wanted children for most of my life, but being married, definitely. I think there's like a really beautiful thing about having a lifelong bond that just gets stronger, but I don't know how much of a fantasy that idea is.
Right. It's so
And
weird.
for some people it works completely, and for some people it doesn't. And I don't know.
It's okay. It's like
Yeah.
the best. You're in the best place by saying like you don't know, because I feel like I don't know.
Yeah.
Mm.
I often struggle with how much of marriage is people just making the best of it.
Yeah.
And how much of it is the ideological, thing that we have ingrained in us that, we're growing together, and how much of it is, well, I'm committed to this and we're intertwined. So,
Yeah.
I consider you a good friend at this point. Let's make it work and, continue along. I worry about that. I want to be idealistic, but when it comes to marriage, once you've been married, I think, and had it go completely awry, part of you is like, well, I thought that once, and I saw how that went.
It's just, honestly, I think it comes down to, are you willing to, can you see yourself changing things about yourself for this other person? Can they see them changing things about themselves? Or are you just willing to accept the person as they are, even though they may evolve and change to something different than what you started with?
Right.
Because people do that. So are you willing to accept that in each other?
Yeah.
Even?
So I really liked. I agree, Mel. I really liked. Courtney sent us a video today from Middle Ground that was pretty great. And I may or may not have the time to link it, but I'll try. But yeah, I liked the way one of the women said that, like, I'm a whole person and my partner should be a whole person, and then our relationship is like a person in addition to that. Like, it's a whole different entity that should be treated as such. Like, you find a way to like make your relationship grow while the two of you are growing. And I think that was a really cool way to think of, like, whether it's a monogamous or polyamorous or any kind of relationship. It's a really good way to sort of set yourself apart from that person. I mean, even relationships with their kids, it's really important to think like they are a whole person without me, and so I think for me, that's like how I try to, I mean, I don't know how good I am at it in practice. I don't know how much of my happiness I bury in my boyfriend. But certainly it's a goal. It's a good goal. So Mel, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and to what Shannon was saying, there was an idea that was raised in one of those videos that I sent you guys about polyamory, that like the concept of in a polyamorous relationship, you are, or at least the way that they were using it was constantly like evaluating and shifting their relationship, and making sure that that's what they wanted. And so it was a way of knowing that the other person is with you because they still want to be with you. And it's not like out of this monogamous obligation kind of thing. And not that monogamous relationships would always be that, but that when you have a less traditional idea of your relationship and you are creating it the way that you want it to be, there's less pressure to have it just reflect tradition. And like, I think there's less risk of people using those traditional ideas instead of being authentically creating their own relationship, if that makes sense. It's kind of like homosexual sexuality tends to be more satisfying statistically because they're reinventing their own version of sexuality that's outside of the traditional norm of what that is. And so, same kind of thing.
It's one of the things about a long distance relationship, just to get back to me. But one of the things about a long distance relationship that I never wanted one ever. I always thought it would be a horrible idea. However, now that I'm in one, I think with the right person, I've realized that it constantly forces me to reassess what components of the relationship are most important and whether or not they're worth giving up other things for. And, I give up having a partner who's here. I give up having a partner who is available to me day to day. There's expense affiliated with, each of us having to support ourselves individually as opposed to being able to share household expenses. There's expenses involved in travel if we want to be able to see each other or interact at all. There's the waiting in order to be able to engage in intimacy. So you're constantly evaluating if what is and isn't worth it and what is and isn't important. And I mean, we're at a year and a half, and I wouldn't change anything, I don't think. But I think one of the important things is that we have an ultimate goal down the road that we're striving towards. So like going towards that, like we'll be together at this point down the road. Goal is, we constantly have that bar of like, okay, well, we need to, that it's still going to be like a year and a half, 2 years. That's a long duration of time. But we know that our personalities are incredibly compatible because we don't have that intimacy and we don't have that day to day. All we have is our conversations really with each other. So it's an extra bar of compatibility that, you wouldn't necessarily have, because if somebody is there with you day to day, you can get comfortable just, doing different things in the same room and still feel as though you're being together when really you could be doing the exact same things alone. You're just feeling their physical presence near you and they're available to you. So I realized that, I've had entire relationships that were just somebody being physically in the same room as me and us not even really interacting and me not even realizing that those interactions weren't taking place on any meaningful level. And now all I have is meaningful interactions.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, anyway, so we're at 10:05, so I'd like to. I know. So does anybody have any last final phrases? Happy anniversary, ladies!
Cheers!
Yes, cheers!
I need to refill my drink.
I think a really beautiful thing that polyamory can teach us, among other groups, is the level of communication and honesty and openness, and honesty with yourself, and again, not saying that doesn't happen in monogamous relationships, but it's something that's such a focus of, I think, the polyamorous community that that all other types of relationships can really learn from, and it's something that is such an essential part of any happy relationship.
Agreed.
And that only do that if you're okay with it. Like your relationship should be a reflection of what your actual values are, and explore if you don't know like where I'm at, but like if you know, then it's just like sexuality. Like you shouldn't
have your
be-
preferences.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be trying to do something that you're not comfortable with because your partner wants to, and it
Right.
either needs to be a conversation or it needs to shift, and maybe you're not right for each other. So
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
living authentically.
it's certainly manageable. Cheers to that. I'm not. I don't have my drink, but cheers to that. I just want to say, like, it is manageable to be a polyamorous person in a monogamous relationship. It can be tough, but I don't know what relationship isn't tough. And so I think that there are certain, like Shannon was saying, you just have to sort of think about the most important things of a relationship to you. And maybe not think about it, but that's part of like dating and exploration and even talks like this, just sort of embedding or engaging yourself with the thoughts that come up when you think about like whether or not polyamory is like weird to you or if it feels good or whatever. And I think I think that it's important to, again, what Courtney said, to have that conversation. Because we're humans, we're so resilient. We can manage a lot of things. We can manage a long time without sex, I think. We
Fine,
can
manage.
Yeah, right. And I just think that you just have to allow yourself to give it thought. Don't do anything you're not uncomfortable with, but allow yourself to think like, okay, there are some really cool women I know who've thought about all these different things, and so I'll give it a shot. Maybe not doing it, but at least like considering it and thinking about it and digesting it. Because we're cool.
Yeah. That sounded like an endorsement for adamandeve.com or something. like going this long without sex. It's like, okay.
I know. Everyone tells me I'd be good in sales. So anyway, so yeah, I don't know. Just it's
Whole
fine.
new section on my website for Science Smell After Dark. All different toys.
Awesome.
Oh, that'd be a good one. Really good.
Very popular.
Oh,
Anatomy
no.
and physiology. So anyway, yeah. Just stop. Okay, so we'll be back. As a matter of fact, next week there's a whole new set of women who are going to join the conversation.
Yay.
And then we're going to grow the group, and then we'll make it more fluid so that we can sort of like go between the groups. So we are a little cliquey, I think, at this point. We love each other, and so we like to like hang out together. But I would like more people to be engaged with the show, and just to really understand that our community is here for you, and we're willing to talk about some crazy things that might be going through your head as a deconvert. And so yeah, that's what we're here for. And so we'll see you next month.
Okay.
In June. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.